Now, during the lunch hour, we'll air a couple of the speeches from earlier today that occurred before our live coverage got underway. We'll kick it off with Florida Senator Marco Rubio.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be with you. Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, what you just heard a moment ago from Kelly Ayotte reminds us that we cannot lose the Senate race in New Hampshire. Please do everything you can to send her back to Washington, D.C. She's a phenomenal senator. And I want to tell you how honored I've been to be a part of this first-in-the-nation primary process. I think it's really great that in America, you want to be commander-in-chief, you want to be the most important political figure in the world. You've got to start by renting a car and driving to town halls and meeting with 30 and 40 people at a time. I think that's fantastic. That the most important political figure in the world begins their campaign in a process like that where they're asked tough questions. Like, for example, the next leader of the free world is going to have to tell us, right up front, are you going for the Broncos or for the Patriots? And I'm here to announce to you, now you guys know I'm a Dolphin fan, but I'm here to announce to you something. This is pretty big. This is a pretty big step for me. I am indeed rooting for the Patriots on Sunday. But not for the reasons that you think. You see, I've figured out that the more rings Tom Brady wins, the likelier he is to retire, and then the Dolphins can be good again. So I'm being selfish, all right? But anyway, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be with you here today. I think we all agree on this. 2016 is going to be a turning point in American history. History will write that 2016 was a turning point. What it writes next is what we are about to decide. For over 2 centuries, America has been an exceptional country. There has never been a country like America. We were founded on an incredibly powerful truth, that our rights do not come from government. Our rights come from God, from our Creator. This is why we believe that all human life is worthy of the protection of our laws. This is why we embraced the only system of economics where people had an equal opportunity, free enterprise, and it made us the most prosperous people in the world. This is why we embraced individual liberty, and it made us the freest people in the world. And over 200 years, America was a miracle, and there's never been a nation like it. But now there's a growing number of Americans that are starting to doubt how much longer we will be that kind of country. A recent poll found that over 50% of young Americans, millennials, believe the American dream is dead. And in your own lives, you are facing the struggles of people living paycheck to paycheck, of young people struggling with the weight of student loans, of a foreign policy that leaves us confused and worried and maybe even scared. A growing number of Americans are saying we do not recognize our country anymore. Things don't seem to be getting any better in our lives, in our country, or in the world. And there are now real doubts about what kind of country we are about to leave for our children. And here's the hard truth. We are on the road to decline right now. And the reason is because in 2008, America elected a president who wasn't interested in fixing the problems of America. We elected a president who wanted to change America, to change it, to become more like the rest of the world. That's why he undermines the Constitution. That's why he's obsessed with attacking the Second Amendment and religious liberties and issuing executive orders that violate the Constitution. This is why he undermines free enterprise. This is why they try to take over our schools through Common Core. And this is why we have such a broken foreign policy, because we have a president who views America as an arrogant global power that needed to be cut down to size. And so he apologizes for America. And he reduces our military and guts it. And he cuts deals with our enemies, and he betrays allies like Israel. And the result is the anger and frustration that people are feeling now. People have a right to be angry and frustrated. And by the way, it's not just at the Democrats, it's at both political parties. For never in our history has Washington been more out of touch than it is now. Now I want to stop here for a moment and say that in Washington right now they are being buried in a snow blizzard, which means that, like federal agencies, were not able to work all day yesterday in issuing new regulations. And Apparently, Barack Obama's executive order pen has frozen. So, come to think of it, it's probably one of the best things that's happened to the Republic in quite a while. But anyway, but Washington's out of touch. This is why in 2009 I ran for the U.S. Senate. My opponent was the sitting governor of Florida. The entire Republican leadership in Washington told me I couldn't run, but we ran, and we won. Because I wanted our next senator from Florida to be someone that would stand up to this agenda and offer a clear alternative. And that's why I chose to run for president now. And the same people came out, the same people in Washington, the same leaders of the party, and said, you can't run, it's not your turn. If you run, we're going to come after you. That's why there's been $25 million of attack ads run against me. That's not grassroots money. Those are big chunks of checks written by people that thought I needed to wait in line and wait my turn. But this is not a time for waiting. This is not a time for patience. After 7 years of Barack Obama, this is a time of urgency. If we get this election wrong, there may be no turning around for America. But here's the good news. The good news is, and I know it's hard to believe this sometimes given all the problems we have, but here's the good news. If we get this election right, I believe America can be greater than it's ever been. And our children can be freer and more prosperous than any Americans have ever been. It begins by electing a president that didn't just read about the things you're going through, but someone who understands it personally, and I do. Hillary Clinton cannot lecture me about student loans because I had a student loan. I had a student loan 3 years ago that was over $100,000. And I was only able to pay it off because I wrote a book. It was called An American Son. It's now available on paperback. She can't lecture me about people living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up paycheck to paycheck. I have lived paycheck to paycheck. And I still have many people in my family who are living paycheck to paycheck. She can't lecture me about how hard it is for working families and people raising children in the 21st century, because my wife Jeanette and I are raising 4 children right now in the 21st century. And I know, and we know firsthand how hard it is to ensure they grow up with the values we want to teach them, not the values that the media and the popular culture is trying to ram down our throats every single day. Our next president needs to be someone that understands these things, someone who's equally frustrated with the direction of our country. I am. And that's why I want your vote. But being frustrated about the direction of America alone will not be enough. Our next president needs to tell you, before they're president, exactly what they're going to do about it. And I will tell you exactly what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to take the oath of office, which means I'm going to place my left hand on the Bible and my right hand in the air, and I am going to swear to protect, defend, and uphold the Constitution of the United States. And unlike Barack Obama, I mean it. We are going to defend the Second Amendment, not undermine it. We are going to protect the religious liberties of all Americans as well. Then I'm going to the Oval Office. Right after I take the oath, I'll go to the Oval Office. And I am going to repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. Every single one of them. On my first day in office, these crazy EPA rules, they're gone. On my first day in office, any work being done by federal agencies to impose Common Core on our schools, it stops. And on my first day in office, this ridiculous and dangerous deal with Iran is canceled on my first day in office. As president, I will support a convention of states so we can get term limits on Congress and term limits on judges. And a balanced budget amendment so we can bring the national debt under control once and for all. We're going to re-embrace free enterprise. That means we're going to reduce our taxes. We're going to scale back regulations. We're going to fully utilize the energy resources in America. In short, We are once again going to make America the best place in the world to create better paying jobs, and we're going to restore our economy. When I'm president, we're getting rid of Obamacare. By the way, I am the only one running for president that's ever done anything meaningful against Obamacare. Because in 2009, they created a bailout fund where your taxpayer money was going to be used to bail out private insurance companies. In 2014, I led the effort, and we got rid of the bailout fund. And we saved taxpayers $2 billion. Now some are saying, oh, this is terrible. What Marco Rubio did is going to lead to the collapse of Obamacare. Yes, I hope so. But whether it does or doesn't, when I am president, we will finally repeal Obamacare and put you again in charge of your health care and health insurance decisions. An issue that's talked about a lot is immigration, and I'll say this to you with full confidence. There has never been a candidate for president that personally understands the issue better than I do. My father was an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants. My wife's entire family are immigrants. I grew up in a community of immigrants, and I live in a community of immigrants. I understand every aspect of this issue, the good and the bad and the ugly. And I can tell you 3 things about it. The first, this issue is now first and foremost about keeping ISIS out of America. And that means That's why I think it's outrageous that the Democratic candidate for the Senate won't tell us how she would have voted on a Syrian refugee deal that was just debated a couple days ago. Let me tell you what we're going to do when I'm president. If we do not know who you are 100% for sure, and we do not know why you are coming for 100% certainty, when I'm president, you will not get into the United States of America. Second, as a son of immigrants, I can tell you enforcing immigration law is not anti-immigrant. It is not. It is what sovereign nations do, and we will. When I'm president, we're hiring 20,000 new border agents. We're going to finish the 700 miles of fencing and walls that the experts tell us we need. We're going to have mandatory E-Verify. And we're going to have an entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays. And only after we have done that will we do anything else. And it will not be amnesty. I do not support amnesty. There are real consequences for violating our immigration laws. For example, if you are a criminal alien, you should be and will be, when I'm president, immediately deported. And if you are a sanctuary city, when I am president, you will lose your federal funding. Last but not least, the most important thing the federal government does is supposed to keep us safe. The world is a dangerous place. You have a lunatic in North Korea with nuclear weapons. The Chinese hack our computers and build up their military. Vladimir Putin is poisoning people even as he's creating all sorts of aggression all over the world. Iran is about to get $100 billion that they're going to use to build long-range missiles and buy or build their own nuclear weapon and sponsor terrorism. And ISIS is beheading people, setting people on fire in cages, and trying to infiltrate their fighters all over the world. And in the face of this growing danger, they're gutting our military. We're not spending enough on our military. The most important thing the federal government is supposed to do, and you know what the results of that are going to be? We are about to have the smallest army we have had since the end of World War II. We are about to have the smallest Navy we have had in 100 years. And we are about to have the smallest Air Force and the oldest airplanes in our history. I quite frankly need to tell you, I find it unacceptable that there are people running as Republicans that have voted to spend even less, that have voted for budgets that brag about how they cut defense spending. When I am president of the United States, we're not cutting defense spending. We are rebuilding the U.S. military, because the world is a safer and better place when we're the strongest military in the world. When I am president, we're having a real war on terror, not a series of speeches or half measures. And here's what the war is going to be like. The best intelligence agency in the world is going to tell us who the terrorists are and where they are. The best military in the world that we are going to rebuild is going to destroy these terrorists. And if we capture any of these people alive, they're not getting a lawyer or their Miranda rights. They are getting a one-way ticket to Guantanamo. And in Guantanamo, we are going to find out everything they know. Everything they know. Because we're going to keep America safe. So in closing, let me say that I know that we face some extraordinary challenges in America today. And people have reasons in their own life to feel pessimistic about the future. Because we are on the road to decline. And if we stay on this road, we're going to have to explain to our children why they are the first Americans in history to inherit a diminished country from their parents. But this election is about picking a different direction. One that will allow us to make this nation greater and more prosperous than it's ever been. And that's why it's so important. And that's what you do here in New Hampshire is so critical. We cannot afford to allow Hillary Clinton to win, or Bernie Sanders for that matter. I think Bernie Sanders is a great candidate for president of Norway. I have nothing against Norway. I don't want to be called anti-Norwegian. I have nothing against Norway. And we've got a really good candidate for you, Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton is disqualified from being commander-in-chief. Hillary Clinton stored the most sensitive intelligence information on her personal server so she could read it on her BlackBerry, exposing it to North Korea, to China, to Russia, to whoever. And Hillary Clinton lied to the families of the victims in Benghazi. She cannot be president of the United States. And Hillary Clinton does not want to run against me. I know it. They attack me every single day. Literally, every day, her campaign attacks me because they know that if I am the nominee, we will beat her. The polls say it, and they know it. They don't want to run against me, but I can't tell you, I cannot wait to run against her. We can't just elect any Republican either. It has to be someone as committed to undoing the Obama agenda as he was to doing it in the first place. This election, in the end, is not just a choice between parties. This election is a generational choice about what kind of country we will be in the 21st century. And we can either be greater than we have ever been, or we will be the first generation to leave their children worse off than themselves. What we are being asked to do is no different than the generations before us had to do. For 200 years, each generation in this country made the right choice. I am personally moved by this cause because America is not just the country I was born in. America is the nation that changed the history of my family. My parents came here with nothing. And somehow working as a bartender and a maid with no money, no connections, and no high education, they were able to own a home and retire with dignity and leave all 4 of their children better off than themselves. This would only have been possible here because this is the greatest nation in the history of mankind. And that was not an accident. We are the greatest nation in history because of what the people who came before us did. For 200 years, each generation confronted their challenges and embraced their opportunities. That's what your grandparents did. That's what your great-grandparents did. Now the time has come for us to do our part in this generation. And when I'm president, we will. For as bad as things may seem, we are on the verge of doing what needs to be done to make this greater than it's ever been. When I'm president, we will. When I am president, we are going to re-embrace all the things that made America great, and we are going to apply them to the challenges of this new century. And I promise you this, if we do that, we won't just save the American dream. We will expand it to reach more people and change more lives than ever before. Our children won't just do as well as we did. They'll be even better off. They can be the freest and the most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. And the 21st century won't just be as good as the 20th century. We can make it a new American century. And so I'm asking you for your vote. And a bunch of other people are going to as well, because 1 out of 6 Republicans are running for president. At least in New Hampshire. I saw the ballot yesterday. It was like... I'm asking you for your vote. If you nominate me, we will beat Hillary Clinton. If you nominate me, we will undo the damage Barack Obama has done to America and usher in the greatest era in our history. If you elect me, I will unite this country, not divide you against each other. I will be a president for all Americans. I'll cut taxes for the people. I'll cut taxes for the people that protest against me too. I'll work every day to keep America safe. And if you nominate me and elect me, I will never embarrass you. You will always be proud that you supported me. And together, we will be able to leave for our children what our parents left for us, the single greatest nation in the history of all mankind. I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right down here in front. Hold on. Now wait for the microphone. Sir?
Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes. Well, I have a two-part question. The first part's really quick. What happens when Bert and Ernie have a baby? You get a Bernie. And the second part...
That's not a question, that's a joke. Bert and Ernie have a baby, you have a Bernie.
Okay, and would you support the proposal Bernie Sanders had made to increase the create CO2 taxes, or taxes on CO2 emissions?
No. No, I'm not supporting any tax. We don't have a tax problem. In America, we have over-taxation in this country. These people are obsessed with taxes. Their solution to everything in taxes, concussions in football, let's put a tax on concussions. I mean, it's crazy. They're out of control. Everything that they solve is a tax. Tax this, tax that. Guy, we have too many taxes. You want to know why businesses are leaving America? Because we've become one of the most tax-crazy environments in the world. We are going to reduce taxes. We are going to reduce regulations. We're going to embrace free enterprise, which is the only economic model in the history of the world where you can make poor people richer without having to make rich people poorer. And that's why we are going to embrace free enterprise when I'm president.
First of all, thank you, Senator, for coming out.
Thank you.
And secondly, I was wondering specifically which taxes should we cut to help businesses, big and small, stay in the United States and grow?
Well, first of all, the most American businesses are organized as subchapter S, meaning they're paying on their personal rate, which could be as high as 39.5. Big businesses are taxed at 35, but with all kinds of exemptions, some are paying 0 or 5%. The first thing I'm going to do is ensure that all businesses in America are taxed on a flat rate of no more than 25%, no matter how you're organized. That'll make us globally competitive. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to allow you to immediately expense everything you invest in your business. So today, if you invest $1,000 in your business, you have to write it off in what's called a schedule over an extended period of time. Under my tax plan, you will be able to write off that $1,000 right away, and that tax year. And third, we're going to bring some of that money back, the $2 trillion that's sitting overseas, by moving to a territorial system of taxation. We have $2 trillion of American corporate money sitting parked overseas. That's $2 trillion is the size of the Russian economy. That's how much money that is. We're going to help bring that back. Here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to have a VAT tax, a value-added tax like they have in Europe and in Canada. We're not. And we're not, as some other people running for president support, going to have an internet sales tax. We're not going to have an internet sales tax where 10,000 jurisdictions across America are now going to be breathing down your neck to collect the sales tax. You don't have a sales tax here. You shouldn't be forced to collect the sales tax of New Jersey or any state in America.
Hold on, guy, wait for the microphone.
Senator Rubio.
Yes, sir.
As president, my name is Mike Castaldo from Dover, New Hampshire. As president, how would you address ending extreme poverty, particularly in Africa?
Extreme poverty in Africa? Yes. Well, first of all, obviously, look, we care about global issues, and I think that's important for us to be engaged in global issues. And I would remind everyone, America's already done more than anybody else, both through the taxpayer, but also through individuals. We're the most generous people on this planet. There are people alive in Africa today because America has funded HIV/AIDS medications that have kept people alive and have allowed children to be born with that. And I think God has honored that and will bless America for what we've done, and we'll continue to be in this way. But ultimately, it's up to those countries to decide they want to embrace economic models that allow them to be prosperous. We're more than willing to help within limits, but ultimately their destiny is in their hands. Our number one priority will continue to be to keep America stronger than it's ever been.
Senator Rubio, I don't understand why so many people consider you establishment. I mean, this is the label you've been given, because I don't see that in you. I see you're polling, you're the one who can defeat Hillary, you're the top person in the bracket. Can you explain why you are the one who should win the nomination?
Well, first of all, as I said, when I ran for the Senate, I ran against the entire leadership of the Republican Party in the Senate. Every single one of them. They wanted the governor of Florida to be the nominee. And I told them, this guy's not a real conservative, and I was proven right. He became an independent, then he ran for Republican as a Democrat, for governor as a Democrat. Now he's a vegetarian. I mean, he keeps switching. So anyway, and even now, I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out a fact. I'm not complaining about this. No, what I'm about to say, I'm not complaining about this. There's been $25 million spent attacking me. $25 million, that didn't come from $50 checks. Those were multi-million-dollar checks that were raised to attack. Because they told me, you can't run, you got to wait your turn, you haven't been here long enough. Well, we've done it that way for too long. Every time we listen to the people in Washington that tell us this is who we should nominate, we lose. I'll beat Hillary Clinton. You know why? I'll beat her because the issues she talks about, I've lived. She can't lecture me about these things. How's she going to lecture me about student loans? I had one. She can't lecture me about people that are struggling to make it. My parents never made a lot of money. And that's why I believe in free enterprise, because I know it's the best way to help people climb up and stand up on their own 2 feet. And she can't lecture anyone on national security. She's disqualified from being commander-in-chief. And so we will win this election if I'm our nominee. I will beat Hillary Clinton. They know that. They know that, and I know that, and that's why I can't wait, God willing, to be the nominee of this party. So we can't just defeat Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. We can turn this country around and away from the disaster of Barack Obama.
Question all day, talking to come from this little girl right here.
Because I'm a child and my parents are gonna pass this nation down to my generation. You touched on a lot of issues, and I wanted to know what you thought was the most pressing issue and how you're going to fix it.
Yeah. What's your name? I didn't get your name.
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin. How old are you, Caitlin?
11.
11. Okay. Caitlin, I have 4 children, and having you stand up today kind of makes me miss them a little bit, because my oldest daughter's 15, and then the next one is 13. And then my boys are 10 and 8, and hopefully they'll join me here on the campaign in the road soon. It's hard to be away from my kids because I'm never going to get these years back that I'm away. But I want to tell you why I'm running. Because I want them to inherit a country as special as the one that was given to me. To me, that's the most important issue. America changed the history of my family. When my father was 9 years old, his mom died. And so he had to go work and never went back to school. And he would never go back to school. He would work the next 70 years of his life. When they got here, they didn't know much English. In fact, the first words my father learned were my cousin, who had lived here a couple years, my older cousin, had written out phonetically on a piece of paper, "I am looking for work." And so he would go to places with his little sheet of paper and say that in his very broken English. And it was hard. They really struggled here for the first few years. Ultimately, though, they got their way. My dad became a bartender on a hotel on Miami Beach, and my mom ended up being a cashier, a maid, a stock clerk at Kmart. And my parents never became rich or famous. They never made a lot of money. But they were able to own a home, and they retired with dignity. And the most important thing for them was they lived to see all 4 of their children better off than themselves. There's no other place in the world where that would have happened. If my parents had gone anywhere else on this planet, I wouldn't be standing up here today. Because most places tell you can only be what your parents were. And that's good news if your parents are wealthy and connected people. It's terrible news if they're not. My parents, thanks to God, happened to wind up in the one place on earth where that's not true. And that changed the history of my life and of my family's. And so why I'm running is because I want my 4 kids, and quite frankly, I want you, when you're my age, to live in a country that still is that. I want you, and I want my children, and I want that generation to inherit a country not just as good as the one that welcomed my parents, but one that's better. And we're losing that. We're losing that. You know, every country in the world has rich people. We're grateful and we celebrate financial success. What makes us special are the firefighters, the police officers, the nurses, the teachers, our veterans. When you become a firefighter, you know you're not going to get rich being a firefighter. But your goal in life is to own a home, raise your family, afford Patriot season tickets, and retire with dignity. That's the American dream, and we're losing it. Because we have a president that's trying to make us more like the rest of the world. In essence, we have a president that's trying to make us more like the countries people come here to get away from. There is no way in the world I can stand by after everything America's done for me and watch that happen. My kids deserve to inherit a country as good or better than the one that my parents left for me and your parents and your grandparents left for your parents. And if I'm president, I will fight every day to make sure that happens.
And Senator, with that, we'll wrap it up.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you
hope I
so
can
much.
earn your vote. Thank you.